Can you slide to your right just a little bit?
All right, we sound good here. I don't hear anything. I'm not hearing it about my ear. Check, check. Now I am. Yep, perfect. Yes. I can. I got everybody. Raiders rundown. Yes. Hey, Link.
JT, what's up, brother?
I'm all good, man. Look forward to getting you in here. I'll just do a quick monologue and bring you in. So you got
Sounds like a plan, my
you
man.
got a good
Let's
you got a good 4 or 5 minutes after the top of the hour. So do what you
Absolutely.
got to do. How about my son's ASU in the Big 12
How about them,
championship
huh?
game? Is that getting buzz?
Yeah, how about that?
Is that getting buzz locally on local news?
Oh yeah. Look, they eat it up here. When ASU does well, they eat it up here. So good for them. Good for the program. This program has come a long way. They had to resort to living in the transfer portal like everyone else to see them on top of the Big 10, Big 12. It's pretty impressive.
Yes. Okay, we're ready to go. All right, for everybody on my YouTube page, this first hour will be broadcast later on the Raiders YouTube channel. So this first hour is going to be mostly a TV show going back and forth. Hour number 2 we'll put exclusively on this YouTube channel. So you get to look in and peek and watch what we do here at Raiders headquarters. It's kind of cool. Yes, 1, 2, 3. Now the team has to galvanize and play like they haven't played this year.
He doesn't really have a weakness when you watch him. He's athletic. He's big in size. He's a really good route runner, really good in space.
There's another opportunity for the Raider Nation. The Black Hole's been great everywhere we've been, home and away. Raider Nation's always loud.
I want people in the locker room who are ready to fight for what it means to be a Raider.
Welcome to Raiders Rundown from Raiders headquarters. I'm JT the Brick. Thrilled to have you today. We got a monster show lined up. You can follow it on Raiders YouTube. We get going on all the Raiders platforms. And I always love being in the building midweek to talk to the head coach, Antonio Pierce. Lincoln Kennedy will join us in a few minutes. Q Myers is our insider this week. And then later on in hour number 2, we'll have Vinny Bonsignore. So we got a big show lined up as the Raiders lost a really tough game in Kansas City on Black Friday, a one-possession game. They had the ball late, an opportunity to win that game on the road, and they came up short. I will say that was one of the toughest Raider games of the year. The team played as physical as they could. They went toe-to-toe with the world champions. I thought Aiden O'Connell clearly outplayed Patrick Mahomes. That says a lot, and Brock Bowers is an absolute superstar in this league. Absolute superstar, and is on pace to break the all-time Raiders single-season reception record for a rookie. Let that sink in. So there's a lot of good going on as this team's got a lot of fight. Obviously, the record is not what the organization wants. We'll get into that with the head coach, but there's no quit in this team, and they're playing hard. And now they got a really tough road trip to Tampa Bay to take on Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers. And the Buccaneers are tied with Atlanta. We got Atlanta coming up on Monday Night Football at Allegiant Stadium, and the Raiders are playing spoiler. You knew that for well over a month that the Raiders were in this situation, and they're playing with a lot of pride, and they're playing with heart and intensity, and everybody in this building today is fired up for every single day and every opportunity to play a team and maybe knock them out of the playoffs. And the Raiders are going to have a lot of teams left on the schedule that they'll be able to do that with. So it's going to be an interesting chance for the Raiders to show us what they have down the stretch. But I wanted to leave with Brock Bowers. Bowers was sensational again. No matter where he is on the field, he has turned into the number one target for the Silver and Black. And wherever you line him up, as you're watching on our YouTube feed, this guy's making plays, one-handed catches down the field. He is the number one target in the NFL. Not just the Raiders, he's the number one target in the NFL, and I love it. I love the targets. I love what Norv and Scott Turner are doing, getting him involved in the game plan, and he's just catching the ball and turning upfield. The ability to start and stop, as Rich Gannon told me, to have that extra gear. Once he catches it, he goes by linebackers and he attacks safeties. He's got great hands, as we know, and he's the ultimate competitor. This kid wants to win. He's a two-time Mackey Award winner. He's a two-time national champion. He is not into losing. Every game he wants to go out and win. I love his accountability. I love when he stands in front of the media in the locker room. Brock Bowers is everything that's right about this team going forward. And as much as we're not talking about next year, the draft and all of that, we go week by week. That's what Raiders Rundown is about. We touch on the last game. We preview the team that's ahead of us. And the team ahead of us right now is really good. And Tampa Bay is also up and down, but they put up numbers. And Baker Mayfield's got Mike Evans. They got players in Bucky Irving. Bucky Irving, in his last two games, 337 scrimmage yards and 2 touchdowns. And they like to throw. Baker can run. He keeps his head looking downfield. Evans is the best 50-50 ball catcher in the league, along with Devontae Adams, who was with this organization with his great years with the Packers. You just throw him a 50-50 ball, he'll go get it. And that's what we're seeing with Evans now. And the linebackers play of Levante Davis. This is an organization that's had great linebackers in their career, and they have, very similar to the Baltimore Ravens, a mindset. This Tampa team has a mindset of go sideline to sidelines, multiple hats on the ball. They like to be disruptors. So the Raiders, fortunately, are playing really good physical football. The Kansas City game, I thought they were the better team, but they didn't win the game. And that's been what we've been talking about all year long, is what can the Raiders do when they have the lead to sustain the lead? When they get back into the game and they're in the game in the fourth quarter, what can they do to finish the game off? There was miscommunication in the last game on the final play as they were trying to get Daniel Carlson to kick the game winner. I'll ask the coach about that as he's coming up here in a little bit. But I bring in the great Lincoln Kennedy, who's on the broadcast and one of the greatest tackles to ever play for this organization. And Link, I'm assuming you and the family had a great Thanksgiving, even though you were traveling back home from Kansas City. How are you?
Well, I'm good to be with you, JT. Look, I've come to the realization that fall holidays just aren't for me. So we don't plan Thanksgiving, Halloween, Christmas stuff. And this one, having to travel on Thanksgiving to get back to Kansas City was not the case. But I did cook for the family, and so everyone got a chance to eat while I was boarding the plane and flying to Kansas City. But it's good to be with you, man. What a heartbreaking loss. It really was.
Yeah.
I heard you in the opening, and I've been talking about it all week. The amount of resound and fight this team has showed me really leads me to believe that this coaching staff needs another try. And I'll say that to say this. This coaching staff came into this situation saying, you know what, I think we have a plan with Aiden O'Connell. We're going to run the ball. We're going to set up play action. That's never really come to fruition. And they really never got off the snide as far as running the ball. We still see the difficulties running the football, but they have shown some promise. What I've seen out of the recent weeks since the coaching changes happened, I've seen more fight. I've seen the offensive line play better. I see the run game get progressively better. And more importantly, you got a quarterback in Aiden O'Connell who feels somewhat comfortable back there a couple games into it. probably the most comfortable game I've seen play was in the Kansas City game. And it's really unfortunate the way that ended, JT, with the missed snap, because they did show a great deal of fight, and the Raiders should have won that game.
Yeah, and Lincoln, they came down in that final possession, and a lot of things had to go right. They wanted to run an extra play. When did they spike it or not? We've been down that road, and we move on to the opponent. But it's just unfortunate. At that point, you had a lot of young players on the field. Yeah. Jackson Powers-Johnson, Aiden O'Connell, Michael Mayer, Dylan Parham here. So as I'll talk to the coach about it, hopefully it was a teaching lesson going forward for this team, a young team, and they don't make that mistake again, and they're more fluid at the end of a game.
Well, there's always been, for me, a feeling of a good team is working through adversity, figuring out a way to win. I think the Raiders are close. Now, where does that judge on the overall scheme of things? It's going to be a long season. We're entering week 14. We still got some weeks to go. The Raiders can go up or down from here. Obviously, every game is another opportunity. But what I've seen so much out of these young guys is the amount of fight of being thrown to the fire, because I'm a big believer you can't make the club in the tub. So put those guys out there, have them do what they do, and they've reacted pretty well. I'm impressed.
Lincoln, as we look towards Tampa, they're a pretty good team here, and they find themselves in games. I mean, the game against Carolina, they lost, and they had 30 seconds left, and Baker set them up for the game-tying field goal. Then they win, and that put them right back into the hunt with the Falcons, who tripped up against the Chargers. This is a team that cannot afford to lose a game. They have been a resilient team, but they find themselves in a lot of games where they're behind and they need Baker dramatically to come back, or they're ahead and their defense gives up points here. So the road team has won the last 4 matchups between the Raiders and the Buccaneers. You just talked about how the Raiders played in Kansas City. They get some extra time off because they played on Friday here. How do you think that affects their cardio, their ability? Because there's still a lot of players, as we wait for the injury report, who are banged up.
Well, that's the big thing. You've got to get the rest as much as possible. So you look forward to times like this. No one really likes to play on Thursday or Fridays, but it does give you a little extra time to respond for the following week. So I'm hoping to see the team respond well to AP and his coaching staff allowed them to get some rest over the last couple of days. It'll be interesting to see, because I'm of the mindset that if I was in that locker room, I would be hungry to go out there and prove myself. We just went toe-to-toe with the defending world champs, and it was a mishap at the end of the game that cost us the game. Learning from that, I'm looking forward to going out there and striking somebody. So I'm ready to go back out there and play a game.
Yeah, we saw Baker, what he did when he was at the Rams for a cup of coffee. But around the league over the last 2 years, Joe Flacco and his resurgence when he was in Indy, Jameis Winston and what he's doing in Cleveland. And I go around the league. It's interesting, Lincoln, these high draft picks. Baker was number 1. Jameis was number 1. And for whatever reason, they played on some teams that struggled. Then they got a chance to play on better teams. Talk about the stability of still these young quarterbacks who are veterans, who are getting a new look with another team that might be better, and now their whole career opens up for them again like it's doing for Baker Mayfield.
Well, I can speak from experience that a new start, a fresh start can be good for a player, especially if you have the right circumstances. In my situation, I came from Atlanta before I went to Oakland, and was a starter ever since I put on the Raider uniform. That being said, you look at Baker Mayfield, there's a lot of pressure that comes when you're a top round draft choice, number 1 draft choice. A lot of pressure, especially on quarterback. Baker's been sort of a journeyman around the league and found his place in Tampa. They love him. They respect him. I'm hoping that we can get a little revenge, because I didn't appreciate the way he beat us when he was in the Rams uniform, the way we lost that game. That was disheartening. So you got another chance, but this is a chance at this particular time, JT, where a lot of times when you're out of the playoff hunt, all you can think about is spoiling other one's placement or opportunity. So it's a great chance for the Raiders to probably do some damage to the Buccaneers along with their division and their playoff hopes.
I like you said that, Lincoln, because a lot of fans want to talk about next year. We'll get to that in the offseason.
Yeah.
We had Rich Gannon on earlier in the week, and Rich said something very interesting. He talked about wanting to play great down the stretch, winning more games, because it gives you momentum into the offseason when you have the workouts and teams come together in OTAs. You remember the guys who come back about finishing strong. And that's what happened last year with Antonio Pierce. He became the interim head coach, and then the team took off. They didn't win every game, but they played at a much different level. Can we count on that with the Raiders down the stretch? Because they've shown no quit. They're playing hard, and they're playing with so many young players and backup reserve, like the game Chason had. Chason's the former first-round pick. You can tell that he's putting it on tape, not only for the Raiders, for everybody else. There was no Nate Hobbs. There was no Epps. There was so many good players. Christian Wilkins, Malcolm Kuntz, not available. And they almost beat Kansas City with 5 defensive starters. Link, I think I texted you. Where would the Raiders have been with all 5 of those defensive starters who are all good players, healthy and playing great in Kansas City? And I'm impressed with the effort on the defensive side by Patrick Graham and that staff.
I agree. I think the sky's the limit when you talk about the would-be starters and what we've seen flashes out of those guys that you just mentioned who are no longer with us. It's anyone's guess. I mean, going into that situation, I was worried about this young defensive backfield against these sturdy receivers for Kansas City. I mean, they went out and got DeAndre Hopkins. You know what they do with Travis Kelce and stuff like that. So they have a way of spreading the ball around. And they did a little bit of it. But Patrick Mahomes, as you mentioned, did not have a great game. And the Raiders should have won. And when you have a quarterback of that caliber that does not have a good game, you got to find a way to win. So to answer your question for the remainder of the season, I'm hoping that we continue to see this amount of fight, and I'm hoping to see some surprises. Maybe they pull a rabbit out of the hat. Maybe they get the run game going to where they rush for over 200 yards. That would be a surprise. You know, those types of things. But I think that the offense is moving slightly more fluid under Scott Turner. I think Aiden O'Connell's got a nice little comfort thing going on. Obviously, you see what he's doing with Brock Bowers. You talked about it. Jacoby Myers is big. And of course, I want to involve the other receivers, DJ Turner, of course, the severity of his injury, but Trey Tucker, those types of things. Get those other guys involved because I do believe we have weapons. And I watched the Kansas City game from the All-22 just the other day, watched it over again, and I noticed in the second half, the Chiefs wanted to bracket Bowers. They want to have a safety over top, and they want to have a linebacker or a nickelback underneath. So if that's the case, you put 2 guys on one, there's going to be somebody open somewhere. And it's up to Scott Turner and Aiden O'Connell to figure out, dissect that defense, break it down, because more teams are going to play Brock Bowers just like that. It's how teams play Tony Gonzalez, how teams play Travis Kelce, all those great tight ends. That's what they do. So they're going to try to take that away.
Lincoln Kennedy joins us on Raiders Rundown as he does every week. I want to stay with Bowers because you get to the games early. You've been broadcasting for this team a long time. You see warm-ups from your perch, and then you watch a game develop. I'm fascinated what you think about his preparation from when he comes out early warm-ups and he comes out with pads. If he doesn't get a target on the first 2 drives, how he stays at a high level until he gets engaged. And it seems like once he catches those first 2 or 3 balls, everybody in the building knows he's getting it, and he still gets separation. What's that like when you watch him from the broadcast booth?
Very impressive. And to be honest with you, JT, it's quite fun. The thing is that I've had, during my broadcasting career and playing career, I've been surrounded by great tight ends and watching great tight ends. I mentioned Tony Gonzalez. You've got Gronk. You've got Kelce. You've got Antonio Gates. All these great tight ends that I played against or have watched play. Now we've got one on our squad, and Mayer, I think, is not far behind. Once we figure out how to get him involved, I think that's a big piece. If you're going to run a lot of 12 personnel, 2 tight ends and stuff like that, you're going to have a way of opening up the passing game to free up those guys, especially when they want to double somebody like Brock Bowers. And I've seen some pieces out of this offense that shows me that they can do it. As I said, the offensive line is playing a lot better, and that's allowing AOC or quarterback to feel more comfortable to survey the field.
Well, I'll tell you, Tampa Bay has a lot of injured players in the secondary. So big question here for you. Look, this team wants to run the ball. It is the DNA of Antonio Pierce, and they're running it better with Sincere McCormick, who I'll get to.
Yeah.
But they got an opportunity now with Aiden O'Connell coming off a big 300-plus yard game and attacking downfield to throw it. So I know you like to run it, Lincoln. I know when they run it behind you, you love it. But now are we seeing a team that's going to say, look, we got a banged-up Tampa Bay secondary. They got a lot of reserves, very similar to the Raiders. Just get out there and embrace the shootout. How do you see this game plan?
Well, I throw the caution to the wind. If you're the Raiders, you're going out there to win, and you want to play to win, and so you want to let everything hang out. I think sort of the evolution of Scott Turner as the offensive coordinator, along with Aiden O'Connell, has really given them an opportunity to really showcase his ability, Aiden's ability of being able to throw intermediate to long down the field. I think they relish in that. There have been so many times earlier in the season when Gardner Minshew was at quarterback, you saw guys run streak routes and strike routes that ran it kind of half-ass. I mean, they weren't trying to get open because they knew the ball wasn't going to come to them because it was already predetermined it was going to go to someone else. So opening up the entire sort of passing game, the passing vault, is something I think this offense needs to do.
I love what we're seeing with Scott North Turner. I look at the numbers here in front of me. Aiden had the 4th best quarterback rating in week 13 at 116.4. On the road against the world champs, And he threw for a career and season high 340 and 2 touchdowns and took the team downfield to eventually set up what could have been the game-winning field goal there. So I think that this is the guy now. Just let him play. Let him play. Open him up. Let's get Brock Bowers an individual record. Let's get him this offensive rookie of the year. Let's get him. Let's feed Brock. And then as we're showing here on YouTube, that touchdown to Trey Tucker, Link, you know me, I've been saying that. Even if it's incomplete, throw it deep and let them know on the other sideline that you have the arm to do it. You have the speedster to do it in Trey Tucker. So do you think we'll see some more deep balls coming up? Because Aiden O'Connell throws a really good long ball.
Yeah, you saw in that last highlight where he had to stop and come back to it for the ball. But the thing is that I don't mind you taking deep shots. Just make sure you're reading it right. And what I mean by that, quarterbacks have to look off safeties. You have to look off deep personnel so you're not throwing the interceptions. Don't get so greedy to where you're turning over the ball because you can ill afford to have that. This is not a team that can really lack or give up possessions to really score points. So you want to take care of the football. So I'm all like that. I don't mind throwing intermediate. I don't mind throwing long. In fact, I saw a number of defenses the Raiders have faced throughout this season start forgetting about the deep ball. They're not going to throw it deep, so we're not going to worry about it, the transition. So you still got to go through your progressions and right reads in order to maintain integrity and not turn over the ball. I think that's the biggest key, I think, for this Raiders offense.
For Scott Turner, the Raiders since week 11th now are 5th in net passing yards at 293.3. Through week 1 through 10, they were 18th. They're better in rushing yards per game as we look at the numbers here, 81.7, and third down conversion is up a little bit. So a two-part question, Link, not only on Scott Turner and Norv and the pace of the game. I like the pace of the game. I love him getting in and out of the huddle a little bit faster. I want to see that continue. And then Joe Philbin with the offensive line. What are you seeing there with their communication overall and how the offensive line is pass protecting?
Well, see, Joe Philbin I tip my hat to him. He should be coach of the year, if you ask me, for what he's been able to do with this offensive line. And I know it's just a position coach. The thing that they're doing a lot better is, one, communicating, first and foremost. Two, I found them better man blocking, going downhill than area blocking or zone blocking. I've seen improvement to that. So calling those plays where they're blocking men and pulling guys around is much better suited for this offensive sort of personnel. But overall, what Scott, in the help of his father, Norm, has been able to do, they've been able to settle down this offense and give Aiden O'Connell opportunities and options in order to make plays. It's not just this ball has to go to Adams when he was on the team, or it has to go to Myers. It's not just it has to go to Brock Bowers. He's gone through his reads, and he has used his reads. Now, sometimes he goes a little quick and checks down, and there are times where I think he's looking at the rush. But overall, I think coming off of the heels of this Friday game, JT, he should be much better off and much more comfortable understanding what he can do in this offense, more importantly, what this offense could do with him.
Sincere McCormick, 5.7 on rushing attempts. Something's popped with him. And I go back to last year because we all love Zamir White and Zeus. He was banged up. This year just did not work out well for him. But he took off starting Christmas. In Kansas City was when he took over and played himself into that job. And I wonder what you think of Sincere McCormick as the practice squad player signed, brought up to the team. It seems like it's his job to lose. We'll wait to see what happens with Alexander Madison. I think the Raiders just found a player now with fresh legs and rhythm who's working well with this offensive line and coaching staff.
What I appreciated most about Sincere is that he doesn't do a lot of dancing. He gets downhill right away. That is a big step for this offense. You don't need to be going side to side, get downhill right away, find a lane and hit it. He's not the biggest of guys, so you don't know how much how durable it can be. But he has taken care of himself, and he's become somewhat invaluable with that backfield being as marred up as it is with injuries. So I like Sincere. I like the way this offense has gone, and I just like the rhythm that they've gotten in. I know it's not a heavy run offense. I get that. I accept that. But get downhill quick, and you see from this exit, you're seeing the highlights right now. The line of scrimmage is being blocked. The front seven are being blocked. You don't see any penetration in the backfield. As soon as a running back gets the football, he's cutting. And that's what you need to be successful. He's getting downhill right now, hitting line of scrimmage. I love that.
And finally, when I look at the Raiders running game versus the Bucs defense here, Tampa Bay gives up 117.2 a game. That's 12th best rushing defense in the NFL. And in the last 3 games, the Bucs ranked 5th best opponent rush yards per game. So if the Raiders want to play violent and they want to try to run, I'm all for that. It sets up Brock and play action, but they got to be careful here because this is a game that Tampa Bay can get hot quickly. They can go downfield and hit Evans twice for 2 touchdowns. You're down 14 points when you blink here. So I wonder what's going to happen here, because in the last 3 games, the Buccaneers have really come together, and they have this Bucky Irving who's playing really well. Evans, this is going to be a chess match here, and I know the Bucs need this game. We watched Hard Knocks. It debuted in the AFC North last night, and they went around, and Cleveland's out of it, Baltimore's in it, and Cincinnati's kind of out of it, and then Pittsburgh's there. But you saw all the coaches telling every team as they stood in front of them, every game was like life and death. We got to win these games. We got to get into it. So the Raiders are coming into that storm. They got a Buccaneer pirate ship there. The Raider Nation is Pirates. They're going in there, and this is a playoff game for Tampa Bay. One loss along the way here can keep them out, because the wild card in the NFC is a mess. So if you don't win the division, it's kind of like what the Niners are dealing with the NFC West. If the Niners don't come back and catch Seattle, they're not getting in via a wild card and linking this Atlanta, who we'll see on Monday night, in Tampa Bay. I think they're going to be coming out fired up in the next 2 weeks to save their season and try to get a playoff berth.
The stat you just read lead me to believe that teams feel they can do better passing the ball against this Buccaneers defense than running the football. And there's something to be said about playing possession and ball control. That's true. But you also want to generate points. And when you get into shootouts or get into the possibility of shootouts, offensively, Tampa can score. They do have the means to be able to score, and they can score well, especially if the quarterback is on its point. And my point is this, is that you don't get away from what you do and what we've seen over the past 3 games. The Raiders offense has been passing the ball more. Use that. That now becomes your strength, because before then, it was very futile if you were going to get any offensive prowess during a game.
All right, Link, as you go to Tampa, Burns Steakhouse is one of the greatest steakhouses in the world. In the world.
For sure.
When we go to Super Bowl there, it's unbelievable. And as you know, it's one of the great cigar cities. And you're a big cigar guy there because of what they do in Ybor City and all that. So where does Lincoln Kennedy rank Tampa Bay, Tampa St. Pete as a road trip city for the Raider Nation?
I love it. The Raider Nation always travels well, so you're going to see plenty of them down there. I love it. I've been one of those guys who's been somewhat of a recluse, where I'm getting away from more and more of the crowds because of what we do in the line of work that we're in. But for the most part, anytime you can put me on the beach and have water hit my feet on the sand underneath my toes, I'm a happy camper.
Safe travels, Lincoln. Thanks for doing this as always.
I'll see you, brother. Have a good one.
He's the greatest, man. Lincoln Kennedy, we love having him on here every week, and Lincoln gets it, knows what this team does from the offensive line to access with the coaches and the fans of the Raider Nation. So when you see Lincoln Kennedy outside Allegiant Stadium or on the road, give him a big pat on the back. We love what he does here. We love that we have a flagship radio station. Here's our lineup, the morning tailgate, 7 to 10 a.m. Rich Eisen, who always talks about the Raiders, 10 a.m. to noon Pacific. I'm on every day, noon to 2, and Q Myers, 2 to 5. Q's going to join us here in about 30 minutes. He's our insider this week. So we got a big show lined up, and as you can tell, everybody is working. Silver and Black Productions never stops. There's a lot of teams, 32 teams around there. I think less than 10 have a coach's interview. We have it because the coach is kind enough to do that. All the shows that we have on television, YouTube, on radio, I know Raider Nation appreciates it. Win or lose, we're trying to give you everything we got here. And it's going to be one important off season. Everybody knows that. But until then, we'll talk about the upcoming opponent. And when we come back, my conversation with head coach Antonio Pierce on the final sequence, what happened in Kansas City, and what it will take for the Raiders to play another spirited game, a physical game on the road in Tampa Bay. There's some history there, too. You know the history with the Buccaneers, so the Raiders will be up for that. We continue here on Raiders Rundown. Really good, man. So everything you just did is going to show up on the Raiders YouTube channel. You'll see all the video, all the touchdowns, all the Brock Bowers stuff. Really good. So what we're going to do here is play Antonio Pierce. I already recorded it, so you'll be the first to hear it. It was really interesting. He had a lot to say. So I'm going to bop in and out of here, but you're going to be the first to hear Antonio Pierce and what he told me. We did that on tape right before the show, about 10:30 in the morning. Then when we come back, I'll reset everything. We'll have Q Myers in here and do that. So this is going to be really good. And again, remember, this show will air later tonight on the Raiders YouTube. So you'll see it all buttoned up with the videos, everything that we have, Brock Bowers highlights. It's going to look really cool. Nice job, everyone. That was smooth. All right, we're going to move this around a little bit. Here we go. A little bit of movement.